Hello, my name is J. Robert Eckley. I'm a real estate and agency attorney and a recovering real estate broker. I've been out there in practice now almost 34 years. If I looked at the clock, it might have just clicked over and been 35. But today, your speaker has asked me to come in with a segue to cover one area that he thinks it may be more appropriate to hear from a lawyer, or at least to add on what a lawyer might say to whatever he's already told you. Today, I'm going to talk about the law as it is in the state of Arizona. Now, by the way, that can apply to many other states than just Arizona, because the laws, though they may be codified differently, are pretty much always the same. It's about not lying, not stealing, and not cheating when in a position of agency. Now, of course, the National Association Code of Ethics is something that applies to all realtors, no matter where they're at, inside the United States and outside. And many times, amazingly, it perfectly reflects what the local statutes may say about honesty, integrity, and competence. So many times there is no disconnect. And when we're talking about Rule 11 today, we're also talking at the same time, and the area where I'm to focus is on R4281101 of the Commissioner's Rules of the State of Arizona. And amazingly, they are in complete compliance. There is no disconnect. This is the one that says that in the event you're going to undertake to render services to a client or customer, or any other type of arrangement, remember, it's not just strictly agency, it's any kind of arrangement where you're going to render what is deemed to be professional real estate services, you are really prohibited from doing so if you are not competent, capable, or experienced in the area in which you're going to practice by that given deal or transaction. And the only way to cure that is to associate someone else who is, and to disclose that to the client or customer or whomever it is you're going to serve. Typically that's the one that's going to get the bill at the tail end and get the benefit of your services, and to get their release in order to do that. Now, you know, what's interesting, both in the Rule 11 and in R4281101, is that it's not entirely clear whether the client can release you from competence. I'm going to have some comments on that in a minute, no matter who you might associate or no matter what kind of release they may give you. And also, it's unclear whether it's a disjunctive or a conjunctive. In other words, is it disjunctive that if I get someone that's associated with me in rendering the service who is capable and competent in that area of practice, then I'm okay? Or must I also have them associated before the client can actually release and allow me to go forward to render services? It's really unclear both in the NAR code, and it's also unclear in R4281101, which was clearly patterned after it, sub H we're talking about. Here's what I'm going to tell you. Obviously, it's going to have to be conjunctive, meaning that when the client gives a release, it's not only for purposes of you being able to participate when you have not had experience in that area of practice or in that type of transaction, but also that it anticipates that you will be accompanied at that time in that project by someone that you have associated who is. And let me ask you something practically. Why wouldn't you want someone on board like that? If you're going out into territory of which you have never reconnoitered before, you know, there's a lot of bears and wolves out there in practice. And why wouldn't you want some hunter that has been there before, someone alongside you to actually teach you the ropes? So obviously, it's a good practice just to have one there. Now, even though the statute does not seem to say that if the client gives you a release, you need someone like that, a pro on your team, to work through this deal or this particular type of transaction, obviously, I think the rest of the statutes out there and the rest of the NAR code implies that you do, and here's why. Because you cannot be released from negligence. You cannot be released from misrepresentation. All of those are provided by other portions of the statute that say that it's impossible for you to say, in this case, I'm going to come in and violate virtually every statute, including state statutes and rules, and you're going to release me, including that this deal actually turns out to be one that doesn't end up damaging you. Those kinds of releases are virtually violations of public policy, and they've never been enforced to my knowledge. And in Arizona, there's 3 or 4 cases that say they can't. The Lombardo versus Albu, the Arenque case, and the Salt River cases. These all say that releases that release you from even the basic minimums of competence are themselves unenforceable as a violation of public policy, because the community themselves has established what they want you to do when you get involved in something as serious as a professional real estate transaction. And they have the right to expect that even though you may be inexperienced, you're going to bring an old dog along who is not, and that you're going to get the effect that they're seeking, which is competent, capable service. Now let's go one step further. How in the world could you get a release of competent, capable services while at the same time having a fiduciary duty to the party whom you are presenting it to? Well, obviously, most of these folks are going to rely entirely on what you say, and they're going to sign anything you put in front of them. And my question is, would it be a violation of your fiduciary duty per se to put in front of your client something that says that you can rape, pillage, steal, do a terrible job, and not know even what you're doing and get paid for it with complete impunity. I think I would, in a litigation, put that document right in front of you and probably embarrass the heck out of you with it, saying, obviously you must have known you were not up to the job, and obviously wouldn't the best fiduciary advice that you possibly given to that client would be not to sign this, but to go to another agent who had the talent that you obviously don't. And the very fact that you asked them to sign this in advance, wouldn't that sound a little conspiratorial and a little greedy and a little graspy? I certainly think it would. It doesn't play out. It's not worth it. And so I read these conjunctively. In other words, if you do not know the area of practice and you do not know the transactional method very well, associate an old dog who does. Yes, you may have to pay them part of the fee. That would be, I consider, one of the best buys in town. And let your client go ahead and consent to the fact that you're co-involved on this and to the association of the other party so they know who's playing what base, and go ahead and do the deal and learn something. It'll probably be the best money you ever spent, and you're still going to make some money. So let's not be greedy, folks. Let's sit down and figure out, how is it that we learn this business? What's the best thing to do? What's the best for the client? And how can we fulfill fiduciary duty? So obviously, let's read NAR Code Rule 11, and let's also read R4 281101H to mean that we need both. We need the disclosure, and we need someone along with us who has done this before. Well, I said my piece. It's time for me to turn this back over to your speaker. Thank you very much for listening.